On August 3, 1938, the Second Sino-Japanese War was in full swing. During an engagement between the Republic of China's Air Force and the Japanese, one Chinese pilot flying the Gloster Gladiator Mark I engaged 3 Japanese Mitsubishi A5M carrier-based fighter aircraft. When the leading plane came in for the kill, he deliberately rammed his Gladiator against it, exploding both aircraft. Somehow, the Gladiator's pilot suffered minor injuries and burns. All that could be recovered from the aircraft was the machine gun, and when the pilot faced his commander, he asked if he could have another plane to go with his machine gun. Although they were in China, both of them spoke English with one another, because the Chinese pilot was US-born Chinese-American Arthur Tien Chin. He became America's first fighter ace of the Second World War. Arthur Tien Chin was born on October 23, 1913 in Portland, Oregon. He was the first of 6 children to a Cantonese father from China's Guangdong province and a Peruvian mother. His grandparents on both sides emigrated to the United States. When Japan invaded Manchuria after the Mukden incident, Arthur felt motivated to come to China's aid. Decades later, when a reporter asked him why he went, he simply replied, "China called me." He wasn't the only one, though, and according to the Federal Aviation Administration, it became a mission of the Chinese-American community to train promising pilots for military duty in China. Around 200 men and women received training in the United States and ended up serving in China. In 1932, just 18 years old, Arthur enrolled in the aviation training under Alan D. Greenwood, Oregon's aeronautics inspector. Thanks to Chinese businessmen's generous donations, they ensured 34 young Chinese Americans could take courses at Swan Island Airport in Portland. In December that year, Art was appointed as a warrant probationary pilot, but not in the United States. To provide some context about 1930s China, several Chinese provinces were still governed by warlords, often only giving token allegiance to Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist government. As such, provinces often had their own air force, 16 when the Chinese-American pilots arrived. Together with between 11 and 15 others Chinese-American pilots, Arthur joined the Cantonese Air Corps of Guangdong. Their pay was no more than the equivalent of $25 per month, which stood in sharp contrast to the later established American volunteer group pilots, who received the equivalent of $500 per month. In 1933, he was promoted to second lieutenant. 3 years later, Canton's Air Corps merged with the Republics of China Air Force, which mainly used the Curtiss Hawk IIs. Some sources indicate it wasn't a merger, but Arthur and his fellow pilots defected to the Republic's Air Force. At any rate, the merger proved to be a unique opportunity for Arthur. Thanks to deep ties between China's nationalist government and Germany at the time, Arthur and John Wong, one of his fellow US-trained pilots, were provided the opportunity to receive training in Germany. Both pilots enthusiastically accepted, and they received air-to-air gunnery training at the Luftwaffe's Lechfeld Air Base. After successfully completing his training in Lechfeld, he was promoted to first lieutenant and briefly served as a flight instructor back in Guangdong. It appeared his main handicap in his social life was that he spoke Cantonese with an American accent. Not really a handicap at all, and photographs reveal him sporting a thin pencil-shaped moustache and a pipe. He became known as a ladies' man, but he soon met and married Eva Wang, daughter of the Chinese diplomat Wu Tingfang. The couple had 2 sons, Gilbert and Steve. During this time, Arthur received command of the 6th Squadron, and in June 1937 he was appointed as vice commander of the 28th Pursuit Squadron, part of the 5th Pursuit Group. The squadron's part of the 5th Pursuit Group consisted of Chinese pilots with the occasional Chinese-American pilot. They flew the Curtiss F-11C Goshawk, known simply as the Hawk II, an American naval biplane fighter aircraft. The Chinese Nationalist Air Force purchased 52 Hawk IIs, and the squadron Arthur served in would see some real successes with the plane. Still, the plane's design and qualities were soon outdated, having an open cockpit, a fixed landing gear, and 2 rifle-caliber machine guns. There was ample opportunity to achieve aerial successes, because on July 7, 1937, a firefight between Chinese and Japanese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge caused irreconcilable conflict. The already abysmal relationship between Japan and China escalated into a full-fledged war. By August 1937, the Imperial Japanese Navy began launching a steady stream of bomber raids against China's Chuyong Air Base in Nanking. The entire 5th Pursuit Group, of which Arthur's 28th Pursuit Squadron was part, was deployed to defend it. On August 16, the Japanese launched their first 2 raids against the Chuyong Air Base. 6 Mitsubishi G3M Rico bombers reached the airbase by 10 a.m. that morning. Due to foggy weather, the air raid warning net didn't warn any pursuit squadron in time. Both Arthur's 20th Squadron and the 17th Squadron stationed at Chuyong had to prepare their aircraft in a haste to fend off the Japanese. The subsequent aerial battle is documented in relative detail. Due to the raid's late warning, only a few pilots managed to intercept the Japanese bombers in time. Among them was Arthur. Yet by the time their Hawk IIs reached the bombers, the first few Mitsubishis already dropped their bombs on the airfield. The Hawk IIs weren't really out of date, but had difficulty keeping up with the Mitsubishis. Nevertheless, commander of the 17th Pursuit Squadron, John Wang, managed to score 3 victories against the Japanese bombers. Quite an impressive feat. As for Arthur, he pursued another Mitsubishi called Significant Damage, but was unable to keep up with it. Still, records state the Japanese pilot ended up crash landing off Korea's southern coast. His plane had been hit 58 times, but the pilot and gunner both survived. Arthur's Hawk II didn't survive the battle unscathed. It was hit many times during the pursuit, although it received no irreparable damage. Interestingly enough, the Republics of China Air Force awarded Arthur a victory, even though Arthur never confirmed he saw the aircraft crash, and as we know now, the aircraft had to crash land. Due to the shortage of equipment and difficulty organizing China's defense against the invading Japanese, the 28th Pursuit Squadron was split up into 2 after this battle. Captain Chang Ki-wang was sent to northeastern China, whereas Arthur received command over the remaining 4 Hawk IIs. They were stationed in southern China, in Guangdong, to protect the Shaokun aircraft factory. In September that same year, another Japanese air raid by the Mitsubishi G3M bombers targeted the Hankou-Guangdong Railway. Arthur's Hawk II, supplemented with 3 Hawk IIIs, flew against the raid. Arthur didn't claim a kill during the subsequent dogfight. However, although the Hawk IIs shot none of their planes down immediately, Japanese records show one of the G3Ms crashed above the sea after running out of fuel and being severely damaged. As it appeared, Arthur's Hawk II did the bulk of the damage. In October that year, Arthur's 28th Pursuit Squadron received good news. China's nationalist government had purchased 36 Gloster Gladiator Mark Is. These British-built biplane fighters were a welcome addition to the outnumbered and outclassed Chinese Air Force. Not to mention they were faster and more modern than the Hawk II. Gladiators had an enclosed cockpit and 4 machine guns. Upon the arrival of the plane's parts, the pilots assembled the aircraft themselves, and in January 1938, 24 of them were ready. 16 other Gladiators arrived in January and were assigned to Arthur's 28th and the 29th Squadron serving with him. Most of Arthur's eventual victories were attained in the Gladiator, but he suffered 3 serious plane crashes with them as well. Before most of his victories, things soon took a turn for the worse. Early morning, February 9, 11 Gladiators were meant to be transported to Nanchang, north of Guangdong. However, a snowstorm messed up that plan royally. At first, the guiding Volt V-92C Corsair had to return midway because its engine started to falter. The Gladiators continued their journey, but 2 of them got lost and ended up landing completely off route. Arthur got the worst of it though. Flying low to see if he could spot a landmark of Nanchang, he crashed into a hill. He suffered minor injuries, but the Gladiator was written off. Only 8 of the 11 Gladiators ended up making it to Nanchang. Within 3 months, Arthur recovered and began flying again. Flying his trusty Gladiator, he shot down a Nakajima E-8N single-engine 2-seat reconnaissance seaplane. In June that year, he was promoted to captain and officially received command of the 20th Squadron. He had been vice commander up until then. Not too long after, he downed another Mitsubishi G3M bomber. On August 3rd, Art saw some of the most intense action. General Claire Lee Chennault, who rose to fame as commander of the American Volunteer Corps, the Flying Tigers, but by that time was still an advisor of the Chinese Air Force, gave a detailed account of what happened. According to him, during a mission, Art engaged 3 Japanese Mitsubishi A5M carrier-based fighter aircraft. When the leading plane came in for the kill, he deliberately rammed his Gladiator against it, exploding both aircraft. Somehow, Arthur suffered minor injuries and burns, but the only thing that could be salvaged from his crashed Gladiator was his machine gun. When he faced Claire Chennault after the affair, he asked him if he could have another plane to go with his machine gun. The Mitsubishi A5M is an interesting plane as it was much faster than any fighter in China's service. 2 months after Art's encounter with the A5M, his squadron was re-equipped with the Soviet-built Polikarpov E-15 biplane. Although Arthur flew multiple missions in the Polikarpov, it appears to have never claimed any victories in it. Art eagerly hopped into his old trusty aircraft when the option to return 3 Gladiators into service came along. In November 1939, he shot down a Japanese Mitsubishi Ki-15 light bomber and reconnaissance aircraft. Later that month, he downed another G-3M. In total, between 1937 and 1939, Art achieved 9 aerial victories, and he reached the rank of Major in December 1939, making him America's first fighter ace. But that same month, things took a turn for the worse. Tasked with escorting 3 Tupolev SB twin-engined monoplane bombers, a Japanese squadron intercepted Art's squadron near Kunlun Pass, Guangxi. During a dogfight, one of the Japanese Mitsubishis, presumably an A5M, shot the fuel tank of Arthur's Gladiator. They say bad things come in threes, and this was the 3rd time Arthur suffered a plane crash. He managed to parachute out and survived the subsequent crash, but his plane went up in flames. Art himself suffered 3rd-degree burns over most of his body and face. This meant his aviation career came to an abrupt end. To make matters worse, the military could not treat him for 3 days due to lack of facilities. This delay worsened his already severe injuries, leading to a slow and challenging recovery over the next several years. It would take years, and many men's careers would have ended at this point, but Art's wouldn't. He had received many medals at this point, and among them were the 5-Star Medal, 2 Orders of Renaissance and Honor, 3rd-class medals, the Order of Resplendent Banner with Special Rosette, Medal of Victorious Garrison, 2nd class, Awe-Inspiring Medal 3rd grade, and the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal, on screen right now. Together with his wife and sons, they moved to family members near Liuqiu Airfield. Over here, Art received treatment and slowly recovered from his burns. Now, Liuqiu was located close to the front lines, and shortly after the couple settled down, a Japanese bombing raid targeted the airfield they resided nearby. What followed was some of the most grisly scenes imaginable. Hearing the aircraft approach and bombs dropping, Art's wife first took their 2 children to the bombing shelter. Due to his injuries, Art was immobile. His arms, body, and face were wrapped in bandages, and he was unable to see. His wife was too late in getting him to the bombing shelter. Many years later, in an interview, Art recounted how Eva threw herself on him, shielding him from the shrapnel and bombing blast. She didn't survive. Art did. He and his sons fled neutral Hong Kong, where Art received multiple surgeries in an attempt to restore his eyesight and mitigate most of the damage his burns caused. Still, when in December 1941 Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, he flew with his 2 boys across the front lines back into friendly territory. General Chennault, commander of the Flying Tigers, drafted a letter requesting urgent air transportation for Art and his family. They arrived in New York in summer 1942, where he again received extensive treatment in the New York hospital. It took nearly 2 more years to restore his face reasonably. Once he gained enough strength, he made numerous appearances at war bond rallies and on the radio, speaking to increase American morale and the war effort. Some sources indicate he was briefly married to a nurse with whom he had a daughter. They amicably divorced before 1945, though. By early 1945, Arthur wanted to do something more result-oriented. Although he wasn't fully recovered yet, he applied to the Chinese National Aviation Corporation, a co-owned airline by the Chinese nationalist government and Pan American World Airways. The U.S. Army Air Forces contracted the corporation to supply U.S. forces in the Pacific and Indian War theater. Having logged over 3,000 flight hours and having ample commanders willing to write letters of recommendation, Art began his airline career there. On March 1st, Arthur was officially discharged from the Republic of China's Air Force. 2 weeks later, the Chinese National Aviation Corporation contracted him. From then on, he regularly flew planes to resupply American troops on the front lines. By July, Arthur rose to the role of co-pilot, reapplying and regaining U.S. citizenship in the process. None of the sources I've read made mention of him ever losing US citizenship, but I am assuming he lost it when he was entered into service of the Chinese Nationalist Air Force. Arthur was stationed in India. He flew over the Himalayas to supply troops in China. It's pretty notable that this flying route, which was fittingly referred to as the Flying Hump, was considered by some as just as dangerous as flying a combat mission over Germany. Over 300 aviators went missing in the area, never to be found again. Wasn't all dangerous, though. In India, he met his third wife, Vivian Yang. Two worked for the corporation. They married in 1948 and the couple had one child, Matthew. Around the time Matthew was born, they left their jobs and returned to Portland. There, Arthur worked in the mail sorting center of the U.S. Postal Service. Interestingly, in 1993, the Chinese National Aviation Corporation's employees received recognition for their contribution to the American war effort. All of them received a veteran status. Together with other former colleagues, Arthur received the Air Medal for meritorious achievement of his flights between March and August 1945. Arthur Chin passed away on September 7, 1997. Not even 1 month later, on October 4th, he was inducted into the American Air Power Heritage Museum's Hall of Fame as America's first ace of the Second World War. 11 years later, the US government renamed a post office in Beaverton, Oregon, after him. In his lifetime, the comic book China's Warhawk was based on his exploits. Thank you for watching this video. If there's a topic or event you'd like to know more about, let me know your thoughts in a comment. You can buy merchandise such as this mug on my website. The link is in the description, including a discount code. I would also really like to thank all my patrons and channel members for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider supporting me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you already get access to the exclusive Patreon series. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.